Hi there, and welcome to a very special edition of 15 Minutes of Shame, folks. I'm Tristan.
I'm Brendan. In this special episode, we'll be covering the second Democratic debate, nights 1 and 2.
Over the course of this episode, we'll take an in-depth look at the top candidates and their policies, as well as the debate format and qualification requirements.
The debate took place over 2 nights on July 30th and 31st in Detroit, Michigan.
As of this taping, the first night of debates is yet to come, so I'll be back later in the show to give you a full recap of nights 1 and 2. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about the Republican primaries and Donald Trump's main challenger, Bill Weld. Let's jump right in.
So let's first talk about how everyone qualified for the debate. A candidate could qualify 2 ways, either getting 1% in the polls for 3 separate polls before a cutoff date, or by having 65,000 unique donors who made contributions to their campaign.
Pretty much everyone who qualified for the first debate made the second one. The only dropout was California House member Eric Swalwell. His seat was replaced by Montana Governor Steve Bullock. But other than that, everyone made it. So we're going to move on, and first, let's discuss the top candidates.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is currently leading the Democrats, but his lead has narrowed quite a bit in the past month.
This was mainly due to what became the story of the first debate, Kamala Harris calling out Biden after he bragged about working with segregationist lawmakers to pass legislation back in the 1970s, when he was a senator from Delaware. Other Democrats in the race, like Cory Booker and Bernie Sanders, also felt that the comments were inappropriate. Biden's performance in the first debate seemed otherwise a tad underwhelming, but let's discuss his policies a little bit.
Biden is a moderate Democrat. He served as a senator from Delaware from 1973 to 2009, and was vice president under Barack Obama for 8 years. His policies have changed a lot over the years to reflect the times, but he has 2 notable policy proposals. He wants to triple funding for low-income schools, and he has released a climate action plan that falls right in line with the Green New Deal, a proposed package that would combat climate change.
After Biden is Bernie Sanders, who has served as Vermont senator since 2007. Sanders is a Democratic socialist and is famous for his policies of Medicare for all and tuition-free college.
In the past few years, he's revolutionized the Democratic Party with his progressive attitude, and his stances have rarely changed throughout his career. Also notably, he has not formed a super PAC, which is a committee formed to take in huge donations from corporations. Sanders has usually pulled behind Biden, but is closing in fast.
Rounding out this trio is Elizabeth Warren. Warren used to be a law school professor and has been Massachusetts senator since 2013.
She is a progressive candidate, and her most notable policy is an anti-corruption bill which would seek to rid the federal government of being influenced by wealthy individuals and corporations. Warren has also been polling consistently high, sitting right behind Biden and Sanders.
Now here's 2 final candidates that have made a recent push to the very top. First, there's Kamala Harris, a former prosecutor who has been the senator of California for the past 2 years. Harris is tough and outspoken. She rose swiftly in the polls after her criticism of Joe Biden in the first debate.
Her policies are not unsurprising. She's pro-choice, has pledged to fight for equal pay, and supports protection for Dreamers, immigrant minors who have been granted conditional residency in the United States.
And finally, the last of the top candidates is Pete Buttigieg, who has been the mayor of South Bend, Indiana since 2012. He's only 37, and a few months ago, most people could barely pronounce his name, but he's risen dramatically to become one of the highest polling candidates.
Buttigieg has an impressive background. He's a graduate of Harvard and Oxford, and reportedly speaks 9 languages. His time as mayor has also been impressive. He helped to increase population while lowering unemployment big time.
Buttigieg has a number of revolutionary policies, such as the abolition of the Electoral College and support for the Green New Deal. But his most extraordinary idea concerns the Supreme Court. The current court has 9 justices, most of whom hold either liberal or conservative positions and tend to vote that way, so cases are often decided 5-4. Buttigieg's plan would have the Supreme Court consist of 15 justices. 5 would be conservative, 5 would be liberal, and the other 5 would have to be confirmed to the court in a unanimous vote by the other justices. The idea behind this being for all the justices to work together. This plan has received both criticism and praise, but whichever way you look at it, it's radical.
So there you have it. These 5 candidates, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Harris, and Buttigieg, are leading the pack.
Now let's quickly go through some of the other candidates in the hunt rapid fire, and go.
New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
He supports Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, and he wants to enact more lenient marijuana legislation. Former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro.
He is running on a platform to increase funding for pre-K education. He also supports making illegal entry a civil offense rather than a federal crime. Former Texas House member Beto O'Rourke.
In the words of the man himself, I was born to do this. He also knows just enough Spanish to pander to voters. Washington State Governor Jay Inslee.
Inslee is mostly known for his environmental plan, which would aggressively combat climate change. Hawaii House member Tulsi Gabbard.
Gabbard is a polarizing figure. Although she's a member of the Democratic Party, she's caused controversy for her social views. In the past, she was against same-sex marriage and abortion, although she now supports both. Gabbard has also shown support for the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, in the past. These controversies have prevented her from gaining much traction in the race so far. New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
Gillibrand is running primarily on policies of gender equality and military reform, and is a staunch supporter of the Me Too movement. And finally, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Klobuchar is a moderate and has not been too outspoken on most issues, falling mostly in line with the party's beliefs.
These 7 candidates are in the hunt, vying for the top spots. Finally, let's discuss the few remaining candidates that make up the rest of the pack. These are candidates who have not polled especially high and have been lackluster in the debates. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio.
De Blasio is certainly the most famous name in this group, but he's extremely unpopular, both in New York and nationwide. During the first debate, he made headlines for his constant interruption of the other candidates. Look, to be honest, all of his policies pretty much fall in line with what you'd expect, so let's talk about that one time he dropped a groundhog.
What?
Yeah, I know. I found this when I was doing research, and I knew it just had to be included, you know? So, back in 2014, de Blasio was doing his first Groundhog Day ceremony as mayor, and when it came time for him to actually hold the groundhog, named Charlotte, he literally dropped it on the ground. Here's the thing though, a week later, the groundhog actually died from internal injuries that sources say were consistent with a fall. So if there's one thing about Bill de Blasio you should take away from this episode, he killed a groundhog that one time. Alright, who's next?
Entrepreneur Andrew Yang.
Yang has never held public office before, but he's known as the founder of Venture for America, an entrepreneuring organization. He is also running on the policy of giving every American person over 18 a basic income of $12,000 per year, whatever your circumstances may be.
Author and activist Marianne Williamson.
Williamson is famously known as Oprah's spiritual advisor, and she says her campaign is dedicated to the search for higher wisdom. She's also said that she will harness love to defeat Trump. Let's just move on. Ohio House member Tim Ryan.
Who?
Montana Governor Steve Bullock.
Who?
Michael Bennett.
Oh yeah. Didn't he play for the Seahawks a few years ago?
You know what? Let's just, we're just gonna go with that. Ken Davis.
I definitely don't know him either.
He's not even real, I just made him up. But that's literally the point. And lastly, the two Johns, John Delaney and John Hickenlooper. I feel like if they switched families, it would take at least a few months for even their wives to tell the difference. And that's the field.
Yes, all 597 of those people are in the debates. A few famous people notably failed to qualify, including Tom Steyer, a billionaire best known for his campaign to impeach Trump.
Honestly, Tom Steyer even being a candidate is scary to me. He's basically running because he's rich and he can. That's genuinely worrying.
So there you have it, folks. Now, we'd like to tackle some of the biggest questions that have been swirling around the Democratic race.
All right, first, let's talk about some of the candidates. Who's been the most impressive candidate to you so far, do you think?
Well, now that we're a few debates in, I can confidently say that Kamala Harris is definitely going beyond my expectations.
Yeah, it's been good. She's been surging. I mean, from debate 1 to debate 2, really after her criticism of Biden, she's received a lot more support.
Yeah, after that first debate, going head-to-head with Biden, it seems like she's really gained a lot of support that wasn't there before.
That's very true. Who do you think's been the most underwhelming candidate for you?
For me, I think that Pete Buttigieg has been really disappointing. Coming into the debates, he looked like he was going to be a very strong presence and maybe go toe-to-toe with Harris or Biden, but his debate performances have just been completely underwhelming. He hasn't really let out a lot of anything directed at anyone or any policy points. He's just kind of there, honestly.
And for me, I'm probably going to say Beto O'Rourke. In 2018, back in his Senate race with Ted Cruz, he was mobilizing a lot of support, especially across social media. But during the debates, he's just, he's kind of been floundering at the bottom, especially with his policy points. All right, so how about this one? Which candidates will surge or just continue to surge? I mean, which candidates are really going to make their mark?
Well, I think that Harris is going to continue to surge both in the debates and in the polls due to her background in law.
Yeah, she's certainly a very eloquent speaker in the debate. She was really able to, shut people down and really able to take control.
I believe that Elizabeth Warren is actually going to lose a lot of votes as people move towards Harris's policies and her bold strategies for the debates.
I think so too, yeah. And how about this? Which candidates will just manage to stay afloat? Who's just going to, not really be a factor, but kind of sneak into the third and fourth debates?
I'd say Beto O'Rourke. He's got enough support behind him to make it into the next debates, but I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. He's not going to make any sort of surge.
And actually, I was looking at this the other day. Andrew Yang has actually garnered a lot more support than I thought, like 2.5%, and that's over the 2% needed to qualify, that's interesting too. I don't know if he'll be a factor, but he'll certainly be part of the conversation.
Now, which candidates do you think will drop out in the coming debates?
I don't know, probably just the smaller candidates. Klobuchar, I wasn't extremely impressed with her performance. She'll probably just drop out. I mean, there's a lot of candidates polling below 1%. I mean, for sure, de Blasio, he'll probably be out of there. He was very unpopular to begin with. And, a guy like Delaney and Hickenlooper and Tim Ryan, they just haven't made a mark for themselves yet. It's disappointing, but they're probably gonna drop out.
I definitely agree with what you were saying about Klobuchar dropping out. I think maybe she has just enough to kind of keep her in the race and make sure everyone knows her name, but it's certainly not going to be enough to keep her in the debates. I think she'll probably leave very soon.
And let's move on and talk about our final point. Who's going to be able to unite progressives and moderates in the Democratic Party? I mean, who's going to eventually kind of pull through and win the race, you think?
Well, I believe that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are just too far to the left to get any of the moderate vote. And that makes me believe that Joe Biden will most likely pull through and be able to collect a large portion of vote from both sides.
That's kind of true. I mean, he's got the name recognition, but he's also that comfortable sort of centrist character, that's really I think he'll be able to unite him. He'll bring them together. He's probably going to just keep maintaining that lead and probably win the race.
I think it would be very helpful if he could start doing better in the debates.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Last time Harris was all over him, but, Biden's he's going to need to prove himself, but he's probably still going to win anyway.
And now it's time for a recap of nights 1 and 2. What were your thoughts, Tristan?
Well, on night 1, I thought, the main candidates that were expected to dominate, Warren and Sanders, did just that. I think they stuck progressive, they stuck to their policies. The other candidates are mostly a spray of moderates, so they really had to stick to their guns in terms of that. But I think they were able to pull ahead.
I definitely agree with you on that. But Beto O'Rourke and Buttigieg were both kind of disappointing, honestly. I think out of everyone in that group, Warren and Sanders are certainly the favorites.
Yeah, I was especially disappointed in Buttigieg. I mean, O'Rourke has been kind of traditionally underwhelming, but Buttigieg really seemed, he showed some promise. He showed some promise in the polls, some promise in even the first debates, but he just wasn't the force that he needed to be in that one. In addition, other candidates saw some strong nights in night 1, like John Delaney and Marianne Williamson. They both got some good airtime, and I thought they answered the questions pretty well. It might bump them up in the polls, but as of now, Warren and Sanders still hold the lead for night 1.
And what were your opinions on night 2, Tristan?
Well, I thought that, Joe Biden was clearly the front runner heading in, and I thought he did a little bit better than the last time. It still wasn't where it needs to be, but he still was the support to probably make it through. The debate was really, a lot of people were attacking him. The questions CNN posed, it seemed sort of divisive, Harris got to attack him, and de Blasio got to attack him. Harris was really able to make her mark, de Blasio quite a bit less so, but it was an interesting night too.
Obviously, the frontrunners had some big performances, but it also seemed to me that some of those in the back also had pretty big nights, certainly a lot stronger than those from night 1.
Yeah, the other candidates in the hunt just seemed more prepared, seemed more willing and more able to take on the big challengers. I think Cory Booker really, not went out of his comfort zone, but just had a lot more productive airtime, and that's what counts, Yang is rising in the polls. I think he's just on the cusp of qualifying for the third debate, so that's pretty good for him.
It seemed to me that Gillibrand was really struggling, and I guess you could say the same for Castro and Bennett. They both really just seem to have very underwhelming nights.
Yeah, it seemed like they couldn't really get there in the end, and it seemed like Joe Biden is still the slight favorite for night 2. And that was the recap of night 1 and night 2, folks. So finally, let's discuss the Republican primaries.
No Republican debates have been scheduled yet because almost no one is running against President Trump, with the exception of former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld. So, who is Bill Weld?
Well, much like Democratic candidate Pete Buttigieg, Weld is a graduate of both Harvard and Oxford. His first role in government was that of legal counsel to the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, and, as mentioned, he was governor of Massachusetts from 1991 to 1997.
In 2016, Weld ran for vice president on the Libertarian ticket with former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. This is the first time Weld has run for president.
Weld has previously stated that the U.S. is under grave peril under the current president, stating that Trump cannot perform his tasks in a competent and professional manner. Weld announced his candidacy back in April.
Other Republican individuals have expressed interest, but so far, Trump and Weld are the only two major candidates.
So there you have it. Those are all the major Democrat and Republican candidates running for president. Throughout this election cycle, we'll keep you updated with segments about candidates and how they're polling, debate results, primary election results, and other news.
And that wraps up another episode of 15 Minutes of Shame, folks.
Look, I know this episode has been a serious one for a change, instead of a comedy, so I'll leave you with a joke. Knock knock.
Oh, okay. Who's there?
The political future of the United States, and to an extent, the whole world.
Oh, man. Hey, Tristan, what do you get if you cross a llama and a helicopter?
I don't know. What?
A serious responsibility for voters to decide which direction the country is headed in.
Oh, God, man, that kills me, dude. That is a knee slapper if I ever heard one. Hey, so what do you call a giraffe with only 4 teeth?
I don't know. What?
The single ability to function as a representative democracy.
Oh, it's funny because it makes no sense.
Politics.
I'm Brendan.
And I'm Tristan. See you next time.